transmitted to our men and women overseas by short wave and through the worldwide facilities of the Armed Forces Radio Service. Petri Wine brings you Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce in the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes. The Petri family, the family that took time to bring you good wine, invite you to listen to Dr. Watson tell us another exciting adventure he shared with his old friend, that master detective, Sherlock Holmes. And now I know Dr. Watson's waiting for us, so let's go in and join him.
Come in.
Good evening, Dr. Watson.
Good evening, Mr. Bartell. You're quite muffled up tonight, I see. Overcoat, scarf, and gloves. Slip 'em off and come and join me by the fire.
Thanks, Doctor. Quite a nip in the air tonight.
Yes, there is indeed.
Well, Doctor, you told us last week that tonight's story centered around the activities of a brilliant and beautiful woman.
Yes, my boy. Her name was Irene Adler, but I never knew Holmes to refer to her by any other name than the woman.
She sounds mighty intriguing. How did you happen to meet up with her?
Well, I'll tell you the story from the beginning. One night, it was on the 20th of March, 1888, to be exact, I was returning home from a visit to a patient when my steps led me through Baker Street. Since my marriage, I hadn't seen much of Sherlock Holmes.
And you couldn't resist stopping by 221B, I'm sure, Doctor.
Of course I couldn't. As I stood outside the well-remembered door, I looked up at the lighted windows and saw the tall, spare figure of my old friend pass twice in dark silhouette against the blind. He was pacing the room swiftly, eagerly, with his head sunk on his chest and his hands clasped behind him. To me, who knew his every mood and habit, his attitude and manner told their own story. He was hot on the scent of some new problem. I rang the bell, and a few moments later, found myself standing before it.
Marriage suits you, Watson. You look in splendid shape.
Yes, I'm feeling very well, thanks.
And in practice again, I see. You didn't tell me that you'd gone back into harness.
Oh, how do you know?
Elementary, my dear chap. If a gentleman walks into my rooms smelling of iodoform with a black mark of nitrate of silver on his right forefinger and a bulge on the left side of his hat to show where he has secreted his stethoscope, I should be dull indeed if I didn't pronounce him to be an active member of the medical profession.
Same as ever, Holmes. By the way, I'm not interrupting you, am I?
Yes, you are, old fellow, but it's a most welcome interruption.
You're working on a new case?
It looks like it. This letter arrived by the last post today. It's undated and has neither signature nor address. Read it.
Look. They will call upon you tonight at 7:45 a gentleman who desires to consult you upon a matter of the very deepest moment. Your recent services to one of the royal houses of Europe have shown that you are one who may safely be trusted. This account of you we have from all quarters received. Be in your chamber, then, at that hour, and do not take it amiss if your visitor wears a mask. Great Scott, it all sounds very mysterious. What do you imagine it means?
Look carefully at the note, Watson. What do you deduce from it?
Oh, let's see. Well, the man who wrote it was presumably well-to-do. Such paper couldn't be bought for under half a crown a packet. And it's peculiarly strong and stiff.
Peculiar. That's the very word. It's not an English paper at all. Hold it up to the light. You notice anything?
Yes. There's a large E with a small G, and a large G with a small T woven into the texture of the paper.
What does that suggest to you?
The name of the maker, no doubt, or perhaps his monogram.
Not at all, my dear fellow. The G with a small T stands for Gesellschaft, which is the German for company.
And the EG?
That stands for Igria. It's a German-speaking country in Bohemia, not far from Carlsbad.
So the paper was made in Bohemia?
Undoubtedly. The man who wrote the note is a German.
Well, how do you know that?
Observe the curious construction of the sentence. This account of you we have from all quarters received. A Frenchman or a Russian could not have written that. It's the German who is so discourteous to his verbs.
Oh, there's your client now. I'd better go home.
No, unless you have to.
Well, I could stay. I thought perhaps...
Oh, then, my dear chap, stay by all means. I'm lost without my Boswell, and this promises to be interesting. I told Mrs. Hudson to let the masked visitor come upstairs unannounced. Come in. Good evening, sir.
You received my note?
Yes, indeed. Come in, won't you? Sit down. This is my friend and colleague, Dr. Watson. You may say anything before him that you can say to me. Whom have I the honor to address?
You may address me as Count von Kram.
How do you do, sir?
You must excuse this mask that I wear. The august person who employs me wishes his agent to be unknown to you. And I may confess at once that the title by which I have just called myself is not exactly my own.
I was well aware of that fact, sir.
You see, Mr. Holmes, the matter I'm about to discuss implicates the great house of Ormstein, hereditary kings of Bohemia.
That had not escaped me either, sir. In fact, if you will state your case, I shall be better able to advise you. Your Majesty.
How did you... Yes. Yes, I am the king. Why should I attempt to conceal it?
Why, indeed.
I shall remove the mask. There. Mr. Holmes, I have traveled incognito from Prague for the express purpose of consulting you.
Then pray consult.
Briefly, the facts are these. Some 5 years ago, during a visit to Warsaw, I meet the acquaintance of the well-known adventuress, Irene Adler.
Irene Adler? We know of her, Your Majesty.
Now look her up in the index for me, will you, Watson? It's right beside you on the desk there.
I imagine that the name would not be unfamiliar to you.
Here we are. Abrahams, Acton Green, Hatchet Murders. Adler.
Splendid. Hand me the file, old chap. Thank you. Irene Adler. Born in New Jersey in the United States of America in 1858. Contralto. Prima donna, Imperial Opera of Warsaw. Oh. Retired from our operatic stage. Living in London. Quite so. And here's a recent notation. Your Majesty, as I understand, became entangled with this young person. Wrote her some compromising letters and is now desirous of getting those letters back.
Precisely so, but how...
Was there a secret marriage?
None.
No legal papers or certificates?
No.
Then I fail to follow, Your Majesty. If this young lady should produce her letters for blackmailing purposes, how is she to prove their authenticity?
There's the handwriting.
That could be a forgery, Your Majesty.
But it was private notepaper.
Stolen.
My own seal.
Imitated.
My photograph.
Bought.
What? We were both in the photograph.
Oh, dear me. Yes, that's very bad. Your Majesty has indeed committed an indiscretion.
Did you inscribe this photograph, Your Majesty?
Yes, Dr. Watson, I am afraid I did.
Good gracious me.
Mr. Holmes, it must be recovered.
Perhaps if you were to pay enough, the photograph might be bought.
She refuses to sell.
Stolen, then.
5 attempts have been made. Twice, burglars in my pay ransacked our house. Once, we diverted her luggage when she traveled. Twice, she has been waylaid. There has been no result.
Oh, yes, quite a pretty little problem.
It is a deadly serious one to me.
Your Majesty, what does Miss Adler intend to do with the photograph?
To ruin me.
Now, how, sir?
Well, I am about to be married to the second daughter of the King of Scandinavia. She is the soul of delicacy. A shadow of a doubt as to my conduct would bring the matter to an end.
And Irene Adler threatens to send the photograph to your fiancée, I suppose.
Yes, and she will do it. Rather than let me marry another woman, there are no lengths to which she would not go. None.
Are you sure that she hasn't already sent it, Your Majesty?
I am sure.
And why?
She said she would send it on the day my betrothal is publicly announced. That day will be next Monday.
Splendid. Then we still have 3 days. Your Majesty will, of course, stay in London for the present?
Yes, certainly. You will find me at the Langham Hotel, registered as Count von Kram.
Just 2 questions before you leave.
What are they?
Is the photograph large or small?
Quite large. And it was in a heavy frame.
I see. And what is Irene Adler's London address, please?
Briony Lodge, Serpentine Avenue, St. John's Wood.
Thank you, Your Majesty. Good night, and I trust that we shall soon have some good news for you.
I am placing all my hopes in you, Mr. Holmes. Good night. Good night, Dr. Watson.
Good night, Your Majesty. Fascinating problem, Holmes. I wish I could help you with it.
You can, my dear chap. I shall be glad of your company.
That's our first move, Holmes.
A good night's rest. We'll meet here at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
And then?
Then, my dear fellow, we will see what we can find out about Miss Irene Adler, late of the Warsaw Imperial Opera Company, and at present residing at Bryony Lodge, Serpentine Avenue, St. John's Wood.
Well, Holmes, I guess the examination of Brownlee Lodge didn't prove very illuminating.
No, a bijou residence that represents the essence of dignified suburbia, but tells us very little about the owner. I think a visit to the local public house might prove more instructive. Come on, old chap. I see the door of the Coach and Horses inviting us from across the road.
Well, our disguises shouldn't cause any no?
I suggested them. In the character of a couple of stablehams, I felt that we might inspire confidence. This is a horsey neighborhood. And there's a wonderful sympathy and freemasonry among that fraternity. There we are. Better let me do most of the talking.
Yes, I will. I'm sure that your accent will be more convincing than
Let's
mine.
go in, shall we?
What'll it be, mateys?
Half a bowl of malt, please. How about you, Charlie?
I'll have the same.
Two half of old and mild. Here we are, mateys. That'll be a tenner.
Have a drink with us, Governor?
Oh, don't mind if I do. I'll have a Guinness. You blokes new around here?
Oh, yes. We just come over from Clapham.
Clapham, eh? Well, here's looking at you. You hunting for jobs?
Yes, that's right. Well, we was told that Miss Adler, across at Bryony Lodge, needed a new coachman and groom.
Well, it's the first I've heard of it, but it might be true. Have you been over there to ask?
No, not yet. We thought we'd find out something about the old girl first.
She ain't no old girl, matey. She's the prettiest young thing you ever saw under a bonnet, and that's a fact.
You know her, Governor?
Yeah, of course I know her. Used to drive her carriage, I did, before I come to work here.
Oh, what's she like?
Well, nice little lady as you'll find, chum.
Work yard?
No. She lives quiet like. Goes out singing at concerts once in a while. Rest of the time, it's money for jam. She goes out for a drive in the park every day at 5 and comes back to dinner at 6:30. Rest of the time, she's your own.
Oh, shan't manage, you say?
No. But she's got a bloke what comes to see her all the time. He's a barrister. Nice gentleman. Mr. Geoffrey Norton is his name. Good-looking fella. Wouldn't be surprised to see him get sliced.
Sounds like a nice cushy job to me. Come on, Charlie. Let's get over to the house and see what's what. Much obliged to you, chum.
Well, good luck, matey.
Good night.
And thanks for the Guinness.
What's our next move, Holmes?
Let's stroll back to Bryony Lodge, shall we? I'm undecided whether to continue my investigations there or to try and find out something about Mr. Geoffrey Norton, the barrister. If he's just her lawyer and nothing else, it's more than likely that she's entrusted the photograph to his safekeeping.
Hello. There's a cab waiting outside Miss Adler's house.
Hurry, Watson. Maybe Mr. Norton's.
Here we are at the gate.
Yes. And here comes a man hurrying down the pathway. Quick. Behind this post. Listen.
Where to now, Mr. Norton? Drive like the devil. First to Gross and Hankey's in Regent Street, and then to the Church of St. Monica in the Edgware Road. Half a sovereign if you do it in 20 minutes. Right, you are, Mr. Norton. Up in.
Try and signal the cab, Watson. We must follow him.
Here comes one. No, it isn't it. It's a private carriage.
Miss Adler's, no doubt. Oh, here she comes down the pathway. Back again behind the post, Watson.
Where to, Miss Adler?
The Church of St. Monica, John, and half a sovereign if you reach it in 20 minutes.
Game's afoot. Quick. We must get a cab and follow them.
Here comes a hansom. Cabby! Hi, cabby!
Have you blokes got enough money to take a cab?
Here's half a sovereign for you, my man.
Right you are. Where to, Governor?
The Church of St. Monica and the Edgware Road, and another half sovereign for you if you get us there in 20 minutes.
Doctor, again, you broke off your story at the most exciting point. Did you and Sherlock Holmes reach that church inside the 20 minutes?
Yes, Mr. Bartell, we did, but the other carriages were there before us. Holmes went into the church after telling me to guard the outside. I must have waited for 10 minutes or more before Mr. Geoffrey Norton and Miss Adler came out. Spoke a few words to each other, and then left in their separate conveyances. A moment later, Holmes, still dressed as a stable hand, came striding out of the church and down the steps towards me. He was obviously very excited.
Watson, have they left?
Yes, in separate cabs. I overheard him say that he was going back to his office, and she said, I shall drive out in the park at 5 o'clock as usual.
Splendid. Then come on. We can return to Baker Street.
What happened inside the church, Holmes?
They were married.
Married?
Of course. The ceremony would have been illegal if performed afternoon. That accounted for their wild dash to the church. Jump into the cab, old fellow.
Where to now, Governor?
221B Baker Street.
Oh, so they got married, eh?
Yes, and it may amuse you to know that I acted as witness at the ceremony.
You did, but how did that happen?
Their own witness had failed to appear, and I was dragged into the breach. The bride gave me this sovereign as a memento. I think I'll wear it on my watch chain in memory of the occasion.
What an amazing situation. Things begin to look better for the king, don't they? Now that she's Mrs. Norton, the chances are that she won't want to expose His Majesty after all.
I hope so, Watson, I hope so. But we can't afford to take any chances. I think the time is ripe for us to come to closer grips with the lady.
Well, Holmes, now that we've eaten, perhaps you'll tell me your plan.
With pleasure, my dear fellow. And while I'm so doing, I'll proceed with applying the makeup of my new disguise.
Another disguise? What's it to be this
I think
time?
the character and appearance of an amiable, simple-minded, nonconformist clergyman would be the most suited to my plan for entering Miss Adler's house.
You're going to try and enter, then?
I must, my dear fellow. I'm sure the photograph is there. Miss Adler, or rather, Mrs. Norton, who will return from her drive in the park at 6:30. We must be at Briony Lodge to meet her.
And what then?
You must leave that to me. I've already made my arrangements. There is only one point on which I must insist. You must not interfere, come what may, you understand?
I'm to remain neutral.
Yes. There will be some small unpleasantness. Don't join in. It will end in my being conveyed into the house. As soon as I'm able to, I shall open one of the windows. You're to watch from the outside. When I raise my hand, you will throw an object that I shall give you through the window and at the same time cry, fire. You follow me?
Entirely, but what am I to throw?
Oh, it's nothing very formidable. Here it is.
Looks like a great big cigar.
Just
What
an
is it?
Ordinary plumber's smoke rocket. Fitted with a cap at either end to make it self-lighting. Your task is confined to throwing it through the window. When you raise the cry of fire, it will be taken up by quite a number of people. You may then walk to the end of the street, and I'll rejoin you in 10 minutes. I hope I've made myself clear.
Perfectly.
Good. And now, old fellow, as soon as I've donned my clerical attire, let's be on our way. There's no time to be lost.
Nearly 6:30, Holmes. We've been pacing up and down in front of her house for half an hour now. I hope she does come back.
I'm sure she will.
There seem to be a lot of loafers hanging round her gate.
All part of my conspiracy, old chap. You'll see them play their parts in a few minutes.
You still think the photograph is inside the house?
Yes, it's most unlikely that she carries it about with her. Remember, the king told us it was a large frame picture. And also remember that she'd planned to use it within a few days. It must be where she can lay her hands on it. It must be inside her house.
But her house has been burgled twice.
They didn't know how to look.
How will you look?
I won't. I'll get her to show me.
Well, she'll refuse.
She won't be able to... Shh. There comes the carriage now. Remember, Watson, carry out my orders to the letter.
You can trust me.
Good luck.
Blimey, here comes the Duchess of Diddley. Let's put out her carpet. She might get her tootsies wet.
Oh, put a sock in it, Elfie.
Leave him alone. She's no better than she ought to be.
Please, let me through. I live here.
Well, ain't that nice? We'll all come in and have a cup of cat.
Move out of the way, please, and let the lady through.
Mind your own business. Just because your collar's turned the wrong way round, you can't spoil our fun.
That's right, Eddie. Keep your nose out of it, Parson.
Yeah.
Please don't fight about it.
No, I'll tell you what. Stop molesting the lady, please.
Do you? Then how would you like a biff on the nose?
Oh, he hit the poor man, and then he ran away, the coward. Is the clergyman badly hurt?
He hit his head, Mum, as he fell. If you asks me, he's that bad. He's bleeding something terrible. Can we bring him in, Mum? He can't lie here in the street.
Oh, why, of course. Bring him in.
Right you are, Mum. Here, Bert.
Right, Al.
Give us a hand.
Coo, poor fella. Did you see what happened to him, mister?
Yes, I saw, my good woman. A very convincing demonstration.
What you mean?
Weren't you paid by a certain gentleman for this performance?
Oh, you knows about it, too. You must be a friend of Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
Yes, I am.
Oh, nice gentleman. He give us 5 bob apiece for tonight's work. We ain't through yet, though. We got to start yelling fire when somebody tells us.
I'm that somebody, my dear lady. There's Mr. Holmes now. He's inside the house.
Yes, he's opening a window.
Now he's raising his hand. That's my signal. Now to throw the rocket. There we are. Holmes, there you are. You have the photograph?
No, but I know what it is. She showed me as I told her she would.
Oh, I'm still in the dark.
There's no mystery, old chap. When my accomplices started around the street, I had a little moist red paint in my hand. My good friend Alfie pretended to strike me. I clapped my hand to my head and fell down. It's an old trick.
Yes, I understand that, but how did my throwing the rocket help
It
you?
is all important, my dear fellow. When a woman thinks her house is on fire, her instinct is at once to rush for the thing that she values most. A married one grabs her baby. An unmarried one reaches for a jewel box. In this case, of course, it was the photograph.
Where was it?
In a recess in the living room, just above the right-hand bell pull. I caught a glimpse of it as she drew it out. When I made it known that the fire was a false alarm, she replaced the photograph. As soon as I was able to, I advised her that I was feeling well enough to leave.
You didn't take the photograph, then?
No, I felt that over-precipitance at this stage might ruin everything.
What do we do now?
Drive to the Langham Hotel and inform His Majesty of what has happened. Then return with him here. After that, my dear chap, the case will be ended.
This is Brownie Lodge, Your Majesty.
I'm all impatience. You are certain the photograph will still be there, Mr. Holmes?
I have every reason to believe so, Your Majesty.
I must confess this is going to be something of an ordeal.
Then I suggest that you let me do the talking, Your Majesty. I think I know how to handle the lady.
Mr. Sherlock Holmes, I believe.
Yes, I am Mr. Holmes, but how did you know?
My mistress told me you would be likely to call. She has left for the continent with her husband.
You mean she's left England?
Never to return.
Then the papers and the photograph. All is lost.
We'll soon see. Follow me.
She said you'd be looking for something. I hope you'll find it.
This was the rope. Sliding panel behind it. Here it is.
Is the photograph there, Mr. Holmes?
There is a photograph, Your Majesty, but it's a photograph of the lady alone. Here's a letter, and it's addressed to me.
What does it say, Holmes?
My dear Mr. Sherlock Holmes, you really did it very well. Until after the fire alarm, I had no suspicion. But then when I realized how I had betrayed myself, I began to think. I'd been warned that if the king employed an agent, he would certainly employ you. May I congratulate you on your disguise as a dear old clergyman?
Great Scott, he was much more clever than you thought, Holmes.
Yeah, go on. What else does it say?
And my husband and I both thought that the best recourse was flight. So you will find the nest empty. As to the photograph of the king and myself, His Majesty may rest in peace. Oh, thank goodness for that. I love and am loved by a better man than he. I leave another photograph, however, that he might care to possess. And I remain, dear Mr. Sherlock Holmes, very truly yours, Irene Norton, née Adler. What a woman, Watson. What a woman. What a magnificent woman. She fooled me completely. But, I'm sorry, Your Majesty. I've been unable to bring your business to a more successful conclusion.
On the contrary, my dear sir, nothing could be more successful. I know that Irene's word is inviolate. The incriminating photograph is now as safe as if it were in the fire.
Well, I'm glad to hear Your Majesty say so.
I'm immensely indebted to you. Pray tell me in what way I can reward you. This beryl ring that I wear, I should be proud.
Your Majesty has something that I should value even more highly.
You have but to name it.
This photograph, sir.
Irene's photograph? But certainly. However, you must let me give you something more substantial.
No, Your Majesty. This is something I shall treasure all my life. This and a golden sovereign I received from the lady's hand. They will remind me that I was once tricked by a woman that I shall never forget.